Today, we're going to be talking about digital transformation, a buzzword that we hear a lot of, and what it actually means, data-driven policies, automation. So let's start with that. What is this all about?
Okay, well, why don't we start with data-driven policies, okay? And data-driven policies are connected to digital transformation, digital business transformation, and it becomes part of the whole revolution in the use of digital technologies. Now, you could ask the question to say, well, were they not data-driven before? I mean, that's a very legitimate sort of question.
Sure.
Well, you say, well, of course they were data-driven in the past, but the nature of that data being captured, becoming a basis for business strategy, trending, and changing of business strategy, that was by and large dependent upon your workforce and your strategies or internal processes to capture that data from people and convert that into a policy.
Right.
Okay. With the rise of digital technology, by digital technology I mean classical iPhones or Android phones and all the apps that enable you to capture activity, then you can translate, say, supply chain logistics as a process into capturing data at specific points of the process. You can capture other activities like that, giving rise to not your dependency on individuals to give you that information and perceptions, but on the data being captured on those apps.
Sure.
Okay. Now, when you talk about data being captured on apps, then really the sky's the limit in terms of what data you can capture.
And how quickly too, I guess.
Indeed, for sure. I mean, part of the charm of digital technology is the almost instantaneous way by which you can capture it. So imagine in the olden days when you didn't have digital technology, you'd have to wait for your salesman to fill up the Excel spreadsheets and all of that and bring them up.
Or even like your primary research could take forever.
Yes.
Just I remember not too long ago, I think mid 2014, I was working for a telco back then, and we hired, don't know if I should say the name, we hired a very well-known international research company, and we hired them, we commissioned them to come on board and help us understand our target audience better. And so me and a few of our colleagues are really excited about this, because it wasn't often, even back then, that people would be willing to invest the time and money to understand their target audiences. And so we took that opportunity, we ran with it. We kept running. We ran and ran and ran and ran, right? If you get what I mean. So we did like this, the study took about maybe a month to, just get it together, get the plan together. I think we executed it over 2 weeks over multiple cities. And then we waited for like 6 months
to get the results back.
To get the damn results back. And it was insane. And the whole time we're sitting there, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to sit here and not do anything for 6 months? Or are we gonna do something, get the data back? Back in the day, we would measure, we would act, and then we'd rinse and repeat.
And then there's also a question of how accurate that data is.
Of
and
course.
whether it's valid, or did that agency, as an example, did they tamper with the data?
That's the reason you would take back then. You would do it yourself. You'd collect your data yourself, or you would hire a company that you could trust. Trust. So, and the thing is, we sat in on the focus group discussions, and a lot of the stuff we were, back in the day, they'd put you behind this one-way glass or whatever it's called, and you'd be literally sitting there like you're a detective out of CSI or something. But no, they did a fantastic job in terms of collecting the data, because they're professionals.
So let's just stop there. If you take this focus group discussion, in those days you'd have a focus group discussion, and then you'd capture the responses, and then you'd distill it into a strategy ultimately.
Exactly. exactly.
Now-
Something actionable.
Now with digital, okay, you can capture the discussion itself.
Right.
Okay, you don't need a focus group per se. You can even have just a series of discussions. You capture the conversation, and if you capture the conversation digitally, by that I mean you've recorded it, or you've got it in terms of digital data on your computer. Then now you have these technologies that have come in on, like AI, ML, natural language processing, which can be used to interpret that to even to the point of understanding sentiments, emotions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the main thing I think that really has helped. We've always been able to do quantitative analysis, I think. We've always been able to measure an amount or guesstimate an amount of something. But what was very hard to do back in the day, before technology has enabled us to do this now, was that quantitative analysis. Sorry, the qualitative analysis. It would be the qualitative analysis which was really, really hard to get. Because
it still is.
not as difficult. Not as difficult. Like the reasons why and the what's, not the how many's, they are easier to answer now than they've ever been. Like I said, back in the day, advertising companies would claim that, a certain billboard has got this much viewership, or this much traffic, and this kind of traffic, and this much pedestrian traffic, that this many cars go through here. The cars stop right here. In an hour, 5 cars will be in captive audience, got nothing else to do but look at that thing. Now, with technology, even if it's a billboard, I can put a camera there. I can build a simple program that's going to count how many cars. It'll count loiter time. It'll count how many human pedestrians were there, and some demographic information that it could infer simply by putting a single camera there. Men,
Let's
women,
take that further.
ages.
Actually, thinking out aloud, you can take that further. You can say, well, okay, these are the cars. Okay, these are the registration numbers.
Uh-oh, now you're getting dangerous.
Okay, so now you can actually consider, well, exactly where is this data going? So that person in the car is seeing the billboard. He lives somewhere else.
Not just that, but his socioeconomic classification.
Indeed.
Based upon the vehicle that they're driving.
So it opens up the digital revolution. Is that you've captured the guy and his number plate, but his number plate's also been digitized and connected to him, his address and whatever, where you can get data elsewhere. So now you can say, well, this billboard, the information of that, how far across the city was it disseminated?
Can you imagine
before you couldn't?
Can you imagine how insane that is, though? Do you see the actionable side of it?
Oh, absolutely.
I drive past an ad for XYZ product. I stand there loitering it, looking at it. The camera detects that I'm actually looking at it and I'm reading it, whatever. I get to wherever I'm going. And I've got an ad on my phone saying, buy this, whatever, Or for now, maybe you talk about something on one platform, the other platform's connected, and you're like, wait, hang on a second, what happened here? I browsed this 2 hours ago, and now wherever I go, it's product XYZ. So I don't know. I don't know how great that is.
You see, this discussion is now where the whole subject of digital business transformation comes in, which is that if you are able to capture your consumer activity accordingly, then you extract this data, and the consumer activity then gives you an indication of trends. Okay. So what age of person was doing what? Where were they from? That's basic demographics. Add to this your product being displayed on a Facebook page, them connecting on the Facebook page. You get a bit more information a more detailed information about the individual, more accurate understanding of whether it was Cash or was it Talal or was it Khalid. Different ages, different perspectives. You add that further in terms of you look at their Facebook conversations, their Facebook friends, And you say, well, okay, I can categorize this guy as an individual with these types of tastes.
So one thing that I've seen is that people might focus on one aspect of this transformation journey, which is capturing the data. But sometimes people miss the ball when it comes to what to do with that data in their operations. Once you've gathered it, what do you do with it? And how do you know as an organization has fully adopted this digital transformation journey?
And before we go into that, maybe we can look at what the methodology is. Like, how do people do digital transformation? What is the process that people are using?
If you look at, say, supply chain logistics, okay, at the moment they'll manufacture it and they'll put batch numbers on it and they'll pack it. A certain number will go on this trucks, and then there's a bill that says this goes to this shop and that shop and that shop, and that's recorded on paper. Right. Okay. Blue sky thinking would say, well, okay, as you manufacture, say if the pharmaceuticals are manufacturing the medicines, you've got the medicines that's automatically placed in the box and automatically batched. They've got a barcode and automatically read. Then you say, well, okay, these barcodes are automatically read. You can put RFIDs on it, and it goes into this truck, and it's read that this truck went to these 520 areas.
That's the route, right?
Okay.
Right.
Now, if you, at the push of a button, you can say these medicines ended up in that area versus that area. And or what you've done is replace the paper, not just by a man scanning it. The man is not scanning it. As it passes through from the manufacturing to the warehouse, to the truck, to the area, you know that medicine, that quantity of medicine, those types of medicines have reached there.
So it's not just automating the process, but being able to capture the data through that automation and being able to make decisions on which truck should have as many batches.
Absolutely.
XYZ.
So then now you get sales. You know that you can trace a figure, these are the sales. You can say, well, I know that these sales were made here. Right. So you get a demographic distribution of sales. Now, if you then convert that into a data-driven policy, what this really means is, well, actually in this area, my sales are not enough. So I want to have a targeted campaign to boost my sales in that specific area. Now comes your Facebook page and whatever. If you have demographic data of individuals in that area, then you have a targeted marketing campaign for that. And then you can have a feedback loop that says, well, okay, I did this targeted marketing campaign in this area for this period of time. What were my sales like? All of these are almost available to you at the touch of a button.
You know, one of the biggest challenges large organizations would have is to adopt these type of thinking, to be very data-driven and make decisions as information comes in. You have to be very agile. So you'll generally find smaller organizations, you know, they're more equipped to be able to pivot from one thing to another. The large organizations might struggle with that.
I think the question before that is, what is the real meaning of data-driven policy in terms of a C-suite thinking like that? Okay, is the organization, its strategies, its policies driven by solely or exclusively by the data it's extracted accordingly? Right. Okay, by that I mean that they've got these process capturing technology. That is, they are picking up what's being made, where is it going, etc. Right. So then they will extract strategies based on that data and then implement marketing strategies accordingly. Okay? They will then even extract manufacturing strategies. That is, we know the behavior of the consumer in this season. we know that's manufactured accordingly, absolutely.
So hang on. So this is what everyone's done since time,
Immemorial.
Yeah. But so what's different now?
Because you can respond to trends almost instantaneously.
That's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's being fast.
So digital business transformation is actually not about digital. It's actually about business transforming, which is you're transforming to the developing trends.
Making good decisions.
Yes, and be in a position to do that.
Like Talal said, that smaller organization is more, dynamic, maybe a little more agile, a little more nimble on its feet.
So let's take this discussion up. It's not about small organizations or big organizations, actually.
I agree.
It's about the mentality of that C-suite. Is the C-suite thinking about its policy from the digital lens? By digital lens, I mean data-driven lens. Okay? If they're doing that, then whether it's a big company or a small company, corporate or small, they will define policies within the corporate by which they will capture the data for those processes, which are then driven into the necessary dashboards that gives them visibility of those trends. Now, agility, you can talk about agility in the sense that can a large company suddenly introduce that digital infrastructure to measure that? That's not about business agility, that's about your ability to transform the workplace to fulfill that. Okay, there's a distinction here now. So the C-suite is thinking digitally, then now they're introducing the necessary technology to implement it. But both are perfectly capable of doing it.
Of course, I tend to agree that I think one of the things in terms of mindset, you talked about mindsets, is to give, let's say, a department or a particular function that ownership to be able to pivot, to be able to make decisions based on the data that's coming to them. So if the data is saying X, they should be able to transition towards X quickly in order for them to leverage this digital transformation strategy. Otherwise, it's, people will do it just for the sake of being digital.
Digital, yeah.
I was going to say there's a lot of window dressing of digital transformation.
And you see that with a lot of customers. So you'll see a lot of people adopt digital strategies. They'll see what's happening internationally and see, okay, people are going down IoT, artificial intelligence, RPA. They haven't really thought about the complete picture, 360 degrees. Like, look, how are we going to take this data and how are we going to make decisions and what are the sort of challenges we're going to make and how we're going to make the most out of it.
So when we talk about the C-suite thinking digitally, it's about making sure that it's got all the digital transformation technology in place to measure all the data it needs to make the decisions. Okay, so in principle, it's not a digital discussion actually. It's actually a business discussion. In the olden days, you'd actually push out more surveys, more focus groups.
Exactly.
I mean, in that sense, it's no different. But because you've got digital technology, you've got the ability to measure it accordingly. And from there, how do you interpret it is all the data mining technology to measure and extract, measure and extract those trends. And your policy is sitting in the trends. So when we talk about the C-suite being digital, it means that they need to be thinking about the trends that they extract from the data and being able to interpret that within the context of the business strategies.
Isn't there going to be less decision making now, though? I mean, with this sort of transformation that we're seeing, there's a lot of now decision support that's kind of it's advanced, a lot more advanced than it used to be. So maybe C-suite and or senior managers don't really need to work so hard on trying to figure out what the right course of action is. Wouldn't it be also a case of, with the right digital technologies in place, such as AI, that one could expect that in the future that people won't be making as many, or humans won't be making as many decisions as they were in the past. At least the simpler sort of cause and effect based stuff, like stuff that you could program, stuff that you could code. For example, this area doesn't have the kind of distribution, or maybe they're overstocking, and then it automatically, puts out requests to get people to work on marketing campaigns that are more focused. Maybe it sends out the right kind of approval requests for budgets and whatnot. So yeah, where there might be very, very advanced or creative, the creative angle probably be human for a while yet. But some of the decisions that can be like kind of coded, wouldn't we expect those to be, a little rarer?
I think not. I think the reverse is true in the sense that the digital technology, putting a smartphone in the palm of your hands, has made the consumer far more active in terms of its changing his styles and behavior and all that sort of stuff. Okay, they are far more demanding, and so the digital business transformation concept delivers the trends and the change in the trends faster. But the change in the trends demand business strategy. So I think the human element will still remain. What the digital technology is doing is actually giving them the nuances in the trends.
Yeah, I was going to say that the data is going to help validate decisions. So people will probably make decisions and try to use the data to validate it. Or they'll make assumptions or predictions and then try to use the data to sort of validate that, look, does this make sense? And change accordingly. So previously, we'll make a decision, look, we need to manufacture X amount or advertise on this particular location just based on gut or experience. And now people are like, well, why rely on gut and experience when you can rely on data to make those decisions?
Let's take this as an example. If you have an automated lab testing exists at the moment, okay? So you have a set of individuals come in for blood tests, automated blood tests come back, automated filling into the relevant pockets, so that you have Cash suffered this, Talal suffered this, Khalid did this, his neighbor did this. If you got this data coming in on a regular basis with no human intervention after you've given the blood, and every night there's a trending algorithm functioning that says, oops, looks like we're getting a strand of flu. And then they get treated by the doctor and it gets repeated and it's not recovered. Oh, we've got an interesting strain of a flu. I'm not saying it's as simple like this. Obviously, you have to look at it further. But the nuances now in the trends become highlighted. And that's the thing.
So how do we know if an organization is really transforming or whether it's faking it?
It's because its policies, its strategies are purely driven by the data it's getting.
Okay.
The C-suite is actually making policy decisions based on the data and the trends, and therefore it is actually pushing down into the rest of the organization the need for that data, delivering that data, making sure all the necessary activities related to the data are available.
Yeah, but how do you know that an organization is just on a superficial level, just adopted, added a chatbot, added a particular technology, maybe IoT, and gathering data. But how do you know that an organization is fully leveraged?
Are they really invested? Is the true question, I think. How do you know if a company is really invested?
Because from an employee sense, you would see a change in his behavior in terms of how he's responding to the digital processes that have been incorporated into his life, essentially. Okay, so you'll find him behaving almost himself transformed, because he's now responsible for delivering the data necessary for that transformation. So within the employees, you'll see a buzz where the way they're talking, the way they're behaving is different. Okay, you'd actually see the nature of the technology within the company being introduced will be different. You'd actually see the employees being trained on the use of digital technologies as a very normal part of their day-to-day activities.
I think one way to measure it would be the turnaround time for like a service request. Like when you see, for example, when you talk about telcos, you reach out to them with a query. The turnaround time, sometimes with such large organizations, they work in silos. You'll try to figure out who's doing what. So I think one way to sort of see that organizations really leverage that technology and being able to digitally transform is when they can, service these requests quicker, whether it be to the end customer or even to a business partner.
As an example, you can say, suppose now you delayed your internet payment, okay? And it's got to the point where they're reducing the speed of your internet to tell you that, look, you need to make your payments. You go onto their portal on the smartphone, you make the payment. Once you make the payment, paid, confirmed, and you check your internet speed, it's back to your normal speed. That would be a very practical example of what you're saying in terms of the service request being responded to almost instantaneously. And in the back end, you can see what's actually happening is that it's been programmed that the speed must be reduced because they haven't made the payment. As soon as the payment's made, the speed increase. There's not some guy switching up a knob when he gets told that it's been paid. This is also automated. So that's a very nice example of it, actually.
I think one way of putting it might be that higher levels of value from an organization that is data-driven. Surely their ability to provide value, not just internally to the employees and partners, but also externally to the consumers. So one business to another business, if I'm able to provide my clients with higher value. Now, when I say value, I'm not saying that it's more expensive or less expensive. I'm just saying that the value of what I'm providing is higher than my competitor. And that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day, isn't it? We're trying to provide high value products and services to our clients, whether they're consumers or whether they're businesses or whatever they are. So I think that would be an indicator as well. If I were to compare two organizations, the ability of that organization to understand what needs to be done and how to do it quickly, that is for me a kind of an indicator as well, if I was to compare a couple of organizations against one another.
I think that's right. A futuristic age where you've got sensors distributed on your washing machine or some item, that's being transmitted back to the cloud, and the company in the back end is performing the analysis and saying, well, okay, the behavior of this washing machine or whatever is indicative of a fault that we've seen consistently. So therefore, we will send out the service field service engineer to go and correct the problem or to address the problem before it actually fails.
Like a minority report for your equipment.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And that's just an example of improving the quality of that service. But when you talk about value, the C-suite will also be looking at, with all the data that they've received, what is the nature of the value we are delivering, and is there is there new value we can deliver? And in the telecom sector, this discussion is a norm now.
Yeah, agreed.
There's an interesting discussion about Starbucks. Okay, so Starbucks leveraged digital technology. Okay, so they made their app far more user-friendly. The user journeys were good. Everything was there, and they integrated that with the purchase points. They made the purchasing of the coffee, etc., far more quicker, etc. And they introduced wallets and so on and so forth.
And they can spell your name right now.
Yes, absolutely. So obviously, from a digital sense, if they introduce a new flavor of coffee, they advertise it on the app, people try it. The continuity of sales on it indicates to whether it's a hit or not. But the interesting thing there was that the user journey was so good, people stopped paying by debit cards or credit cards, and they paid by the Starbucks wallet. Right. But the Starbucks wallet, you obviously put money in. They did so well that they had enough deposits potentially to become a bank. So the value...
That's like a new meaning for Starbucks, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a very nice one. So the interesting thing is that their digital transformation of their business gave rise to a business opportunity which is completely disconnected with the nature of the value that they were delivering.
They might even have more branches than some banks. I think they'll have either side of the road, so you don't even have to cross the road.
Indeed.
So yeah.
What sort of recommendations would you give to those organizations that are embarking on digital transformation journeys? Most of them are talking about it. A lot of them don't know how to go about it. So what sort of recommendations would you give to those organizations that are sort of embarking on digital transformation journey? Because, like I said, everyone talks about it, but no one really knows what to do. So really quickly, what sort of recommendations would you give to those organizations?
I think you've got to go and look at companies that have done it or claim to have done it. Go and see exactly what they have done. What is their level of business strategy driven by data? And what is the technology that's delivering that data? And then say, well, okay, what of this is, how much of this can I adopt? And how much of that will deliver the types of business value that I want? So I think the starting point is to see what other people have done, how they have succeeded, learn from that, and then engage a partner accordingly. Forget the engage. I was
gonna say you could save some time.
No. I shouldn't have said engage a partner, because that's the wrong thing. We just need to end with to say they've got to look at what other people have done in their industry and other industries. So it opens up your mind to what's possible, and then begin to apply it to your own company.
Cool. Agreed. Thanks very much for your time, everyone, and thank you all for your time. We'll see you soon.